Hello, everybody. Welcome. First and foremost, thank you to the wonderful people at the Shelbyville Library for putting this together. And of course, thank you all for being here. I'm really happy that you decided to come out and take a chance on me. So, my name is Brooke, and I wrote Welcome to Kettle, which is a 5-story anthology of stories that all take place across different periods of time in Kettle, Kentucky. That is not a real place. However, I did base it on my hometown of Jackson, Kentucky in Breathitt County, which is a real place that you can go to. And some of the places that are mentioned in the book do exist in real life. So you can go to Jackson and see Hotel Jefferson if you would like to. So just a little bit about me. As long as I can remember, I have been a reader, and I've always wanted to kind of be an author, so we decided to do that. When I started, I knew 3 things to be true. I wanted to be an author, I wanted to write fiction, and I wanted to write spooky stories. So I started with, well, what's familiar to me? And being from Appalachia, when there's already a whole lot of creepy monsters that run around in the woods out there, I had a whole lot of things that I could draw from. So now I need a setting, so I need a place, which is where Kettle happened, and the way that came about was Jackson, there was a lot of coal mines there, so that was kind of the foundation that I used to build this town. And where it started was I just went online, I looked up a glossary of mining terms, and wrote down a few that kind of sounded interesting and went through them all. And Kettle just sounded right, like that was the one. So that one had the best ring to it, so that's the one that we went with. So I had that. Well, now I needed stories. And I would like to say that I was very well organized and storyboarded everything out and did it the way you're supposed to, but my brain don't work like that. So we just kind of flew by the seat of our pants. So for The Whistler, which is the first story in the book, I kind of based that on, and even to this day, if you whistle outside at night around me, I will smack you silly because that is how deep those traditions go. And even though I know that a lot of it is kind of silly, it's still just a thing. And when you whistle outside at night, you might draw something to you, so you don't whistle outside at night. So that was the folklore that I based this around. And we have a U.S. Marshal whose name is Catherine. And fun fact, that was a job that I wanted when I was little. I wanted to be a U.S. Marshal. So that was kind of where I kind of put a little bit of me in there. And Catherine comes to Kettle to look at some disappearances that look a little funny. So they had her go up there. So she is an outsider. So she has to find someone there in town that can kind of ride shotgun with her. And that's where she meets a local herbalist. And the two of them together team up to track down what lurks out in the woods. And Catherine, being painfully practical, she left Kettle feeling very different about the way she saw the world. And that's the thing with Appalachia, it just feels different there. And so the second story is called Hell in the Mountains. And of course, there is that coal mining history there, and that's where we started here. And we start with the main character, whose name is Virgil, as an old man, and he's going to church Sunday morning to preach the sermon, and he is reminiscing about what brought him there, which was him when he was young. He decided he wanted to be a coal miner like his dad. So he goes down in there, and then of course, this is the story where we meet one of our major villains in the book, and his name is Skoda. And I could go on and on and on about that character and his development, but nobody wants to be here all night listening to me. So he's down there and he sees this thing that he shouldn't be able to see, and you'll learn about the mechanics of why he wasn't supposed to be visible when you read the book. And Virgil, of course, with the deep roots of faith that are there, he thinks that he's seeing the devil. So he does what anybody would do when they go to the older and the wiser, and he goes to talk to his papaw. And his papaw is telling him, well, maybe you need to read your Bible a little more. And then being, of course, young and rebellious and rejecting the things that your parents wanted you to do, he didn't see any part in doing that. So to clear his mind after all these things have happened, he decides to go out and go coon hunting with his dog Daisy. And turns out he runs into this creature again that just kind of seems to be following him. So then he goes back to the Bible, and then he decides, okay, this is something wrong. The devil's running in the hills. I've got to try to help save these people. And that is how Kettle gets its first church established. And then, so our next story is Coal, Ash, and Fire. And the storyline here is actually based on one of my favorite movies. It's a silent film from the 20s called Der Golem, where a rabbi builds this creature to help defend everybody, and then he just loses control of it because that's not something that you can kind of contain. And so the main character here in the story, her name is Dottie, and she has this peculiar ability where she can bring dead animals back to life. And as she gets older and kind of learns how this works, when she becomes pregnant with her first child, it manifests in a different way, and she finds out through total accident that with just a few drops of blood, she can bring inanimate objects to life. So there's that. And then news of this reaches some coal miners who are working at the Black Bell coal mine, and they're not having a great contract time with the owner, and they think he's trying to swindle them, so they decide to make their own golem and have her bring it to life. And then in the end, they lose a lot more than what they gain from that whole exercise. And the next story is called Snakes and Garters, and that one was probably my favorite story that I wrote. And I do feel kind of bad after having it published because I kind of ran Josie through the ringer. She had a really rough go just being young and naive in a place that she had no idea where she was, or there was no one there that she knew. So Josie kind of got a rough way, and she is on her way to New York because she wants to be an actress. And by complete accident, she gets stranded in Kettle Bottom, and then someone gives her some directions to a lady who will help her. And so Josie pretty much ends up going to a place called Frog Pond, and she ends up getting kidnapped and is forced to work in the town brothel. Now, while she is there, and this will be a story for volume 2, she runs into Skoda, who knows the owner of the mine, and it's his life's mission to make Eugene's life completely miserable. So he manipulates Josie into doing something that otherwise she may not have, and through a series of very unfortunate events, something bad happens to her, but I don't want to give away too much. And so the last story it's called Here Kitty Kitty, and this was my creature feature because every anthology needs a good creature feature. And our main character here, her name is Linda, because this story takes place in the 80s when we were still naming little girls Linda. And that's not my joke, I wish it was, I'm not quite that funny. And our creature in this one is called the Wampus Cat, or the Catawampus as it's also been known to be called. Which, just to give you a visual, just imagine a mountain lion that's about horse-sized with 6 legs, and that's a catawampus. And this creature is kind of stalking and terrorizing the town, and Linda thinks that she knows what to do, and she, of course, is trying to get all the adults to listen to her, and no, you're just a kid, we can't put you in danger, and all that kind of stuff like that. So but she ends up calling some of her friends, and they come up with this little plan, and they do it anyway. And of course, that does put her in harm's way. And this is probably, in full disclosure, the only story that has some semblance of a happy ending. All right. So that's kind of a rundown of the stories. And what I would like to do is read a passage from Snakes and Garters, which was one of my favorites. And this is where Josie's life kind of takes a turn in a different direction that she didn't think. And I just need to find my space. Skoda looked down at Josie. The blood had already begun to pool around her head. You made a big mess out of this, didn't you? Josie answered with a wet gurgle that forced blood and saliva to bubble out of her mouth, leaving a frothy red trail down her cheek. Skoda straddled her body and squatted down. Josie looked into the black holes of Skoda's empty sockets. I can make this all go away. There was a strange inflection in his voice. Josie slowly nodded her head. Skoda's laugh came from deep in his chest, a ragged coughing sound like gravel being shaken in a tin bucket. All right then. Skoda put his hands on his knees and brought his goat skull face down close to Josie's. With blurry visions, she saw just a flicker of something moving in Skoda's empty socket. A small, scaly head emerged, its beady eyes glinting in the lamplight, its tiny red tongue flicked out, tasting the air. The cream-colored stripes stood out in stark contrast against the black of the rest of its body. A garter snake. It crawled out of Skoda's socket and plopped down onto Josie's face. More tears began to pour from her eyes as her breath came fast and ragged. She fought to move her arms and legs, but her dying body refused to listen to her. Josie's body began to grow cold, though she wasn't sure if it was from the coolness of the snake's scales or from the loss of blood. A wet gurgle came out of her damaged throat as she tried to scream. She could feel the smoothness of its belly scales on her skin as it slithered its way towards her mouth. As it pushed its nose between her lips, Josie used what strength she had left to clamp her teeth shut. No, no. Skoda worked his fingers into Josephine's mouth. She tried to hold her teeth together, but he was far too strong for her to fight, and she had no strength left. Skoda managed to pry open her mouth. The taste of sour milk and salt invaded her mouth as Skoda's fingers slid across her tongue. She gagged, remembering those dirty fingernails, and the burn of stomach bile began to rise up her throat. Skoda held Josie's mouth open, and the snake crawled into it. Josie gagged as she felt the snake slither down her throat. Tears continued in a steady stream as Josie's body began to jerk and twitch. She felt the snake crawl its way down her throat like she was drinking slime. She felt the snake curl up and settle like a lead ball in her belly. So hopefully that didn't gross out too many people. So now just, if you guys have any questions about me, my book, or my process, or anything in general.
So there is going to be a second one, right?
Yes, there is going to be a volume 2. There was always going to be a volume 2. Anyone else?
Will the volume 2 do the sort of like variation in time? Is it going to be like linear or similar to like the format of Welcome Kettle?
It will still be that variation in time. The one thing that I will not do, which I did here, which was very ambitious, is overlapping storylines. I will never do that again.
Will you bring those same characters?
So some of the same characters will come back. There is, I actually do have planned a standalone book about Kettle Bottom where Catherine returns for another case that happens. So you will see some of those same characters. And then some of the events that happen in The Whistler are going to get wrapped up in a neat little bow. All right. Anyone else?
Well, I'm excited for the next one.
It was very interesting. When I started reading it and I would start the first chapter, you couldn't get up, you couldn't do nothing till you got that chapter read. That's how interesting. I was so amazed, and you did such a wonderful job.
Thank you. I had a few other people tell me that, so maybe I kind of sort of know what I'm doing here. All right. Anyone else?
What does your writing process look like?
So, like I said, I would like to say that, I storyboard everything out so that everything's nice and easy to do, but that's kind of not how it works. A lot of times what I'll do, if I have a scene that I want to write, I will just write that, and then I'll just kind of copy and paste it in wherever it belongs. All right. Anyone else?
From start to finish, how long did it take you?
From start to finish, it took me probably about 2 years, and that was probably about 1 year and 6 months longer than it really should have. Because you do have to write every day, and then someone who had done this before, she said, yeah, maybe you write 2,000 words in a day, but only 6 of them are any good. So you do have to write every day, and there were stretches where I didn't feel very creative, so there were stretches of time that I didn't write. Yes, ma'am.
Were there any stories that like you initially considered as part of like this narrative that didn't make the cut?
Yes. There are about 3 stories that I started and didn't finish because it's hard to be creative, and maybe I wasn't in the right mood to write that story, so I'm going to kind of save a lot of those for volume 2. Yes?
When will volume 2 come out?
Well, I would like to say next year, but it probably won't be for a while. All right, anyone else? No? Okay. Well, in that case, I do have books and some other items for sale. Oh, we need to do our drawing. Brent, would you bring me the jar up here, please? Yeah, just before, was there anybody that didn't get a chance to put their name in that maybe wanted to? Oh, you go ahead and there's some slips of paper back there. If you want to write your name on one and run it up here, we'll add it to the jar.
Sorry, I didn't know about it.
Oh, that's okay. Better late than never, right?
This is true.
You may have said this already, but did you certain, I know that the one character, I think you said, because she was a marshal or whatever,
Mhm.
did you relate to any of those?
Oh, yeah, kind of all of these characters are amalgamations of people in Appalachia that I know.
You probably stole probably.
Yeah, there's one character description in there that did hit it a little close, so hopefully I don't get sued. All right, so. All right, this is that Joe Howard? Woodward? Woodward. Oh, well, winner. All right, so yeah, so you get a copy. All right, you get a copy of the book and a tumbler and a bookmark. All right, so I'm gonna go back here and get my card reader set up, and then I'll be there selling books or cups or whatever anybody wants to buy.